Okay, so we're going to continue working in the last part of the first unit, okay? We almost finished unit 1. And today's subject or topic talks about simplifying and illustrating technical explanations. Last session, we talked about an engineer who was going to give a tour to one of her customers. And in this
Mhm.
case, as an engineer, we have different deals, so we have different, let's say, tasks to do.
Mhm.
So, talking about simplifying and illustrating technical explanations, we know that engineers,
Mhm.
talking about specialized in technical fields, often liaise with colleagues from other branches of engineering. What I mean with the word liaise, the one you got after often, Liasie, liaise, and the pronunciation, it's the same as the
Please.
word deal. Okay, that means
Deal
that
is.
have to
Oh.
do with other person. Okay, that you have to
Uh,
relate to other person,
okay. Okay.
talk, work, collaborate, etc. So this
Mhm.
is another word, another synonym, lease.
Mhm.
So when we talk about engineers that lease with colleagues from other branches of engineering, and frequently, those engineers that are specialized in something have to deal, that means have to liaise with the
Mhm.
generalist project manager, maybe, or they have to talk to non technical concepts in clear, in simple terms. Okay, that means that they need to explain the what they are doing or what the project is about either to the project manager that it's supposed to be an engineer that knows about the idea and the concept, and of course also to non-technical people. We can talk about basic or amateur technicians, students, or social service people.
Mhm.
Mhm. So you need to be able, of course, to explain in non-technical concepts. That means you need to explain as if they were child's, but not to exaggerate the way you explain. And finally, talking about this last section, this section focuses on this important skill. What is a skill? How you, as an engineer,
Mhm.
need and must explain the
Mhm.
concepts
Okay.
to both people, to the engineer that are
Mhm.
your colleagues, and to non-professional people,
Mhm.
like
Okay.
such as a customer, maybe a technician or a client, whatever.
Mhm.
Mhm. And of course, as a note, you should be noted that the specialized terms that we are going to read, work, and write in this section are not a target language. That means this is not vocabulary that you need to learn. No, it's just to exemplify the phrases. That means to give the professional sense to the phrases and techniques. I have a double N in that part. It's N with one N. Um, and techniques used for simplifying and illustrating technical terminology. So, as I said before, what we are going to work with is not what you need to do or know, but for you to notice the differences between something that is professional and, of course, something that is given for non-professional people.
Okay.
That's like the
Okay.
main idea of this section.
Okay. Okay. Good. It's very interesting.
Yep, it is. So let's go on to page, I think it's 11, no, 12.
Mhm.
So now I think you're looking at my screen now.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So it says in the book, simplifying and illustrating technical explanations, as we said before. It's really common that when you're working in a project or something that the enterprise or the factory give to the engineers, of course you need to explain what you are doing to your boss. It could be the
Mhm.
manager, the project manager, the senior manager of production, maybe. I don't know. It depends of the project and of course of the factory or enterprise you're doing for and working for.
Mhm.
So in this case, you might remember that last session we did the first listening about Richard. Of course, I'm gonna play it again so for us to refresh the ideas and the
Yeah.
concept. So in the first part, you can see a photo of something that looks like an excavation. So it seems that they are going to build like a building, maybe some offices, maybe a factory. So it's a construction site. Mhm.
Okay.
So in this case, we're going to listen to Richard. Who is Richard? Well, he is a structural engineer, and he
Sorry,
often. Uh-huh.
excuse me, Osvaldo. I think we have seen this part of Richards with one explanation because
Mm-hmm.
I remember that these questions
Yes.
I respond the last session, but I
Yes.
think okay, but I think we are in the little bit hit 14 little bit because I remember I respond that the last session. I don't know. You remember that?
Yes, we
Okay.
already answered that exercise.
Okay.
But I
Okay.
just want you to refresh the idea of what
Yeah,
we
yeah,
were
yeah.
working about.
Okay. No
Because
problem.
actually all the well, this audio, this listening, we're going to
Mhm.
use them for the
Good.
next
Good. It's
exercise.
better. It's better.
Mhm. So as I was telling you, Rachel is a structural engineer of this project. So as an engineer of a project, in this case a
Mhm.
construction,
Yeah.
you often take customers or your client or the people who is paying you to build a project. Why? Because they want to see how are you working, in which area maybe you have got trouble, or how are you investing their money.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, as we're talking maybe of millionaire projects,
Yeah.
not like $100 projects. So we're talking of millions.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
of course, it's important for the customers, maybe for the people who give the money, to know what are you doing with the money. So,
Mhm.
he is talking about explaining technical concepts to
Mhm.
non-specialists, what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna play the audio one more time. You're not gonna answer the questions, of course, because we already answered.
Okay.
But I just want you to concentrate again in letter B.
Oh, okay.
I want you to think of some tips on
Mhm.
how can you solve the following problems. For example, not being understood. How can you solve that problem? How can you be able to the people to understand what you explain?
Mm.
Number two, explaining difficult concepts
Mhm.
in your idea or in your point of view. How do you think, or how would you solve to explain difficult concepts? Of also, you have to think about being patronizing. Remember that when we explain
Yes.
to a non-specialist, then
So,
sometimes we start speaking as we were talking to a little kid. So how can we avoid to sound as a patronized person? And the last one, it's sounding dual. Okay, what we mean with dual, you might remember, it's sounding boring, sounding that we just go on and on with the same thing. So let's listen to the audio and let's think in these problems. Let's
yeah.
listen to Richard and some of the tips that she might say about this. So let's
Okay.
listen carefully.
Point 5. If you're talking to non-specialists and you start using jargon, then to your audience it's just going to sound like nonsense. That's one problem. Another relates not so much to language, but to the complexity of the technology you're talking about. Even if you use everyday language, the engineering concept itself might still be difficult to explain. And that can make the subject very heavy-going and quite dull, which is obviously not what you want. However, I think it's important not to oversimplify things. There's nothing worse than being spoken to as if you're a child. You don't want to sound patronizing.
Okay. So, in this part, we review the listening about Richard. And of course, we were talking, well, he said some situations or problems that we might affront when we explain something. So that's the aim of this topic, for you to know, to get tips or ideas on how can you explain something that is technical for you or technical in your area to someone who is not an engineer. So I want to think about you, about your engineering, about your job. Think about situations where you explain something and, well, you were not understood. I want you to think in a situation, try to remember something that happened to you where you explained something, but people didn't understand you.
Well, I think he showed them avoid ideas complexity. And in this case, I think the concept of the words that he used should be easy. In this case, more obviously.
Okay.
Recognize it. Okay, more obviously recognize it.
We can mention it as something that is social or quotidian.
Exactly, yes. Using social or quotidian words or ideas about social quotidian in his life. I don't know. I think other ideas more common in his life. No. I think that's my advice or tips for that case.
Okay, that's great. So, in this part now, we have this picture again. I just want you to concentrate in the picture. Let me make a little bit of zoom.
Okay.
I think like that. So, now we're going to have another listening. It's the same person, Richard.
Okay.
In this case, now he's going to give us some advice, some tips about the problems that we read before. I mean, he's going to help us learning a little bit more about how can we avoid, how can we solve about not being understood, sounding dull, being patronized, and explain difficult concepts. What can we do if we face a difficult situation to explain someone? So let's compare what you think about how can you explain in a good way to what in this case the professional engineer says to us. So let's listen carefully to these advices. You can make notes if it's necessary, okay?
Yes.
So let's go ahead, listen carefully.
1.6. It's obviously best to use everyday language as far as possible, but I don't think that means avoiding jargon altogether. I find the best approach, so as not to sound patronizing, is to use a certain amount of technical language and then immediately afterwards give straightforward explanations of what it means using everyday words. When it comes to explaining tricky technical concepts, a good technique is to make comparisons between the technical point you're trying to illustrate and things from everyday life that people are familiar with, to help them paint a picture in their minds. And then to help lighten things up and stop things from sounding dull, I think it's good to use a bit of humour as well, and maybe a few amusing anecdotes.
Okay, were you able to understand the advices or the ideas that he had?
Exactly.
So what can you tell me in a summarized idea about these tips or about the situation of these problems?
Well, he talked about technical concepts, giving giving explanation with good technique
Mhm.
in comparison between two concepts. I mean, technical and maybe illustrating things where he can help to them, in this case, the participants or persons.
Mhm.
And one more. It should be try to avoiding some dull or boring,
Okay.
and using a sense of humor, maybe, I don't know,
Mhm.
his sense of humor, and, and well, and that's all. I think that's all. It's my idea, about that.
Okay, great. Yes, he mentioned some that we sometimes can use humor to try to relax people, so
Okay.
they do not feel a little bit awkward when they talk about professional things.
Yes.
You know that if the situation is, let's say, not embarrassing but a little tensed, then
Okay. Okay.
people start to disconcentrate. And
Yes.
of course,
Yes.
they wouldn't understand. That means that they
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't pay attention. And well, in
Okay.
this case, if they have to decide or to make choices or to make decisions, then
Uh-huh.
those decisions might be not appropriate to
Mm.
the situation. Mhm.
Good. Good.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So, in this case, we have a note, like a post-it, next to the picture of the construction site.
yes. Substructure. Or
Yes.
yeah.
So in this case, Richard has made notes for a guided tour of site. That
Uh-huh.
means this is the guide of what you are going to go into the tour. He's going to
Okay.
explain the pile foundation in general,
Uh-huh.
poured in situ
Foundation.
concrete piles, the
Uh-huh.
precast driving concrete pile, the pile driver, the pile auger, and bentonite.
Uh-huh.
So let's talk about the project now, and I'm gonna write it down here. Let me take out my, there it is. So in this case, the project, what they are building in this photo is a skyscraper.
A skyscraper. Yes.
Skyscraper. Okay, you know what a
Skyscraper.
skyscraper is?
Yes, it's a building, and
Yes, it's a
it's a
big,
big
big
building.
building,
Yes, big
like the
building. Yes.
Empire State, we can say.
Yeah, yeah. It's similar.
So in this case, in this photo, Richard is in charge of the construction of a skyscraper. In this case, in this photo, they are in the early stage.
Early stage,
In the
exactly.
early stage of construction, of course.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So during the tour, he is going to explain some technical terms to a non-specialist group.
Mm-hmm.
So people who is attending the tour, I mean, the people who is visiting the site, they are
Mm-hmm.
not engineers, they are not
Mm-hmm.
architects, they are
Exactly.
not civil engineers.
Yes.
Maybe they are accountants,
Mm-hmm.
administrators,
Mm-hmm.
maybe lawyers, we don't know. So these people are not accustomed to
Mm-hmm.
professional vocabulary, or in this case, technical vocabulary.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So we're going to discuss the following terms and try to interpret them using an everyday language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So these subjects about the substructure, we're going to explain it again, but not in this case as Richard. We're going to explain in some colloquial everyday language.
Everyday language, yes, yes.
Mhm. So I'm gonna set this text in here, and I'm going. Oh my God, let me put it in this place where you can look at it in this place.
Yeah.
And in here, we're gonna write our summary or rephrase of these terms. So I want you to think about these subjects. Do you understand the meaning of these subjects? Have you got an idea of what are they?
Well, precast.
Precast. Okay. What other word don't you understand or are accustomed to?
Well, in this case, bored in situ concrete piles. Okay, concrete piles. Okay, for bored in. I don't understand bored. Bored, and that's all, because I think I don't know if bentonite bentonite is like grease or, well, in my mind is sounds that like grease. I don't know if bentonite or is some material. I don't know what case of material is that, bentonite.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
That's all.
Well, I'm going to explain quite a little bit about these words, or at least this vocabulary. So, yes, you might understand the word substructure. And maybe if you look at the photo, you got the idea that that picture is a substructure. Okay, it's what it's under the structure.
Okay, yes.
Like the base.
Okay.
Then bored in situ concrete piles, this part of the tour, of this part of the explanation, situ concrete piles talks in Spanish about arcilla.
Okay, bored.
So they're talking about the concrete piles. That means the columns. What is the base? Okay.
Okay.
How are they made, or what are they made of?
Okay.
Then the precast driven concrete pile, actually it's we can use them as the pile, the structure that is built before it's set. You might know that when we talk about constructions, there are some structures that the engineers or architects have to, well, in this case, the construction workers need to build, like the base and stuff like that. But there are other piles or structures that they just buy and they just connect. As example, we can have the, what's the name of that part? The underwater system.
Underwater. Okay.
You might notice as the el sistema de drenaje.
Drenaje, okay.
So in this case, this part of the construction, the construction workers do not build the water system. I mean, they do not build like in a 0% the sewer system. The sewers, it's something that it's built in another part, the circles, the tubes, and with the help, in this case, with the help of the machine that lifts the things, I'm talking about the crane.
Okay.
Yes, the crane in this case helps them to place the sewer. So that's the precast, something that it's built before. Then the pile driver, you know what the pile driver is? A pile, do you know what is it?
Well, in this case, pile driver, I think is like a column or a big column or or main column in the construction.
Okay.
I think it's that because pile driver like in Spanish, I understand like pila de mando or pilote de mando,
Okay.
or I think it's
I
Spanish.
I'm looking at the picture, but I do not look. I do not find the pile driver in the picture. I just find excavators
Ah,
and stuff like that.
exactly. Good. I don't know.
But the pile driver, it's
Mhm.
the machine that, in as it says, makes the pile. It makes the hole into the ground. It's like a big
To the
drill.
ground. Mhm.
You might remember the big drill.
The big drill. Okay. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
do you remember a little bit?
Yes. The big drill. Yes.
So that's a pile driver. Let me look
It's
for
like
the
a
photo.
drill, but a big drill. Okay.
Yes, I play a photo. This one,
Ah, yes.
the
Pile
machine that
driver.
makes the holes into the ground, where you
Okay.
establish the base. That's the pile driver.
No. Okay.
That's what I tell you. It's like a big drill, and
Yeah.
actually, it's a big drill.
Yeah. I have seen that machines.
Yes, and the next one, it's the pile auger.
Biologger.
Mhm.
So I understand. So is the component in the pile driver. I
Yes,
mean,
exactly.
exactly. Yes. Auger. Yes.
It's
It's a
the
component like I don't know.
yes.
It's like
I think in Spanish, when you use it real, you say, what's the name of that thing?
sin fin in Spanish, sin fin
Yes, I think it's that.
or
Yes, actually, it's because I forgot the name in Spanish of the little
mhm,
piece that you use in the drill.
yes.
Um,
Okay.
no,
Pile
it's
driver,
not
pile
no
driver.
espija. I don't remember the name of the thing. Well, actually, it's the thing that makes the hole. Okay, that's the part of it. And the
Okay.
last one, it's the bentonite.
Bentonite, yes. I remember well. In this case, bentonite. It sounds like grease, but I don't know if bentonite maybe is another material of the
Yes,
construction. Yes.
bentonite, it's a material actually. It's like a how can I say? It's a rock, but of course you pulled this rock so that you make
Mhm.
like some like a dust, un polvo.
Ah, okay.
So the bentonite in this case, it's the material that you use as clay.
Uh-huh.
Clay in this case, it's arcilla.
Uh,
So the bentonite, it's a type of clay. A
type of light. Okay.
Yes, it's a type of a fine clay.
Okay. Fine clay.
That this is a component of the iron. So
Mhm.
when you build or you yes you build you create let's say the bases, the iron piles and stuff like that. The bentonite, it's one of the components that you
Uh,
use apart from the iron. Mhm. So let's think about it. How would you explain this in everyday language?
uh,
I mean, which one would be the name for a pile foundation in general languages?
exactly. Well, I think the solution in this case is to use the base terms
Okay.
for I need to show maybe with illustrating with
Uh-huh.
drawings and 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 explain the the function in this case for the Pi Foundation in general is a base. It's a base of concrete of
Mm-hmm.
concrete. Mm, according is before uh, a construction before to building or before building before making building or making I don't know in this case um, using uh, uh, a process using the process in this case like a base of the building. I don't know if that is
Okay. What if we call this the pile foundation as underground?
underground. Oh, okay.
That means under the ground. So
Mm.
what is a pile foundation? It's the underground, let's say, a structure.
Space. Oh, okay.
Oh, structure or base, as you said.
Base. Okay.
Mhm.
And this.
Where the building is built.
Okay. Building is built.
What about the board in situ concrete piles? How can we explain that in daily life words?
Well, I think it's a kind of material. In this case, a fine material like that we can find in the surface. I don't know if it is a board, like a board, or arcilla in Spanish. I don't know.
Okay, well, board we can write it as the set, to settle something. Okay, that means to establish something, to put something in a place.
Okay.
So board in situ, in that place, in situ concrete piles. Let me write it, concrete piles.
Concrete
Means
piles.
and talks
Yes.
about the construction of the piles, of the pile foundation. So
Pile
they're
foundation.
connected. The pile foundation, it's the base. But before you place the base, you use a board in situ concrete pile. That means that you build, you do the hole, you put I don't know, maybe the iron base, and then you play the tube, and then you pour the concrete.
The concrete.
So in this case, we can call the board in situ piles as a constructed by a digging a hole. Okay. Let's say constructing something by digging a hole.
Okay.
That's boards in situ. Oh, board. I read board.
Yes, in situ.
Board.
Yes. Or in job site.
That's the idea of it. Then, after the board, we have the precast driving concrete piles. Any idea for the precast driving concrete piles?
Precast driving concrete piles. Okay. It says that using drying systems or precast driving is when they make in the underground systems like a drain systems or that kind of structures.
Are structures or constructions?
Yes.
That are made by hammering. I mean, to use a machine that seems like a big hammer.
Okay.
By hammering the piles into the soil.
Okay.
That means when you have the pile in the hole, then of course you need to put the pile into the hole. So you need to push it. How are you going to push it down? Oh, well, you don't have a big hammer. So you use the precast driving pile. This is a machine that has like a hammer, and it goes up and down, ups and down, like a hammer putting into a nail.
Yes,
in this case, this is for a depth of a 40 meters construction in this case. Okay.
Okay. So
that's it.
The next is pile
pile
driver. Well, in this case, he can explain about machine or showing the machine and showing machine like digging or where the function is digging, digging on the surface and provoking holes that he can put some things like I don't know. In this case, could be dynamics or simply or
Okay.
I don't know. Is that no?
Yes, I write in here, pile driver is a machine, and it says for driving, because it's a pile driver, for driving a pile into the ground.
Okay. Into the
What
ground.
about the pile auger?
The pile auger, it's a component of the pile driver. Use it for no impact. I mean, access to the surface or drilling. Yes, drilling
Device.
drilling device. Okay.
In colloquial words, it would be a pile auger, a drilling device.
Okay, drilling device.
And the bentonite in this case, well,
is in this case is a component or one of the component of like a fine well, I don't remember that. It's
so let's say it's a component
okay,
or material
or material
used in use with iron.
Okay, with iron.
It's like the additives, you know, the additives that you put into the iron when you're melting iron so that it's stronger.
Okay, it's an additive also.
That's the main idea of it. Great. So, talking about these terms, let me upload this in, put it in here. And let's go down to listen Richard again. I want you to listen Richard giving the tour. He's going to explain what we just explained. Okay, now we're going to listen to the professional.
Okay.
I want you to write down how does he explain the concepts. You're going to listen to his explanation in everyday language, and I want you to write down what you listen. For example, the substructure. Well, he said to the people that the substructure, it's the part of the structure below ground. That means underground.
Okay.
So let's listen to Richard, and of course his explanation. Maybe he have different points of view or different ideas in how to explain them. Okay.
Okay.
So listen carefully. I'm going to play the audio. Let's go ahead.
1.7.
As you can see, we've started work on the substructure. In other words, the part of the structure that's below ground level.
Right.
See there.
The foundations are concrete piles. Basically, a pile is a column going down into the ground. And we're using what we call bored in situ concrete. In other words, we bore or drill a hole in the ground and concrete's poured in situ, which means it's actually poured on the construction site in its final position.
Yes. Yeah.
An alternative is to use what we refer to as precast driven piles. Precast refers to the fact that the piles are made at a factory away from the site before being delivered. They're then driven into the ground. They're hammered in with a pile driver, which, put simply, is just like a giant hammer. And they don't just drive in piles, they drive everyone mad with a constant boom, boom, boom all day long. So, thankfully for our ears, we're not using that technique. Instead, we're boring the piles. The pile auger over there is effectively just like a giant drill. As it drills into the ground, we pump a special liquid called bentonite into the hole. Essentially, it's a kind of clay suspension, a sort of mud, and that prevents the walls of the hole from collapsing inwards.
Right.
So, when the hole's finished, it's full of bentonite. It looks just like a big, muddy puddle on the ground. Obviously, it's not a good idea to step in one, like a colleague of mine once did, and then had to drive home in his underpants for a change of clothes. So, once the hole's been bored and filled with bentonite, they lower in some steel reinforcement, and then concrete's pumped in. And because the concrete is denser than the bentonite, it displaces it. So, in simple terms, if you picture a glass full of water and imagine pouring concrete into the glass, the water would overflow and you'd end up with a glass full of concrete. So, that's piling. If anyone has any questions, by the way, just go right ahead.
Okay, you now might listen. How did he explain?
Yes.
And I think it was clearly. I mean, he mentioned all the technique words, but he also explained the colloquial words.
Yes, I know.
Why do you have to do this? Because of course, as engineer, as professional, you need to look and sound professional. So that's why you explain using the technique vocabulary. But of course, you're a person that you might be flexible with the people who is not a professional as you. And that's why you also repeat, but in colloquial words, so that you now have both parts, the professional and the colloquial.
Exactly. That's right.
We're going to write down again, in this case, I don't know if you were able to complete the notes of the explanation.
Well, in this case, I understand a pile foundation is a column into the ground, no? It's a column into the ground.
It's basically that.
Yes.
A column into the ground.
Oh.
Into the ground. Yes. I write it like that. Great. What else? What about to bore? What is the verb to bore? He mentioned a synonym.
The way or the word that he used is drill. It's a drill. I don't know. It does.
To bore is an action verb. So to bore means to drill, to make a hole.
Okay. To make a hole. Okay.
To drill. To drill, to, of course, place the column.
Exactly. Okay.
And then what about in situ concrete? What does he mean with situ concrete?
I think he said anything on the construction, like final position.
Yes. In situ concrete, it's in this case when you place the where you place the pile, the pile in its final position.
Okay.
I mean, you're not going to move it anymore. That's in situ concrete.
Okay, exactly.
The next one, please.
Is precast piles. Well, in this case, they made in job sites or in job site. They made a job site. I don't know. I don't remember more.
No. Okay.
They
I'm
made a job.
gonna play this part. Just one.
Cast pies.
Let me make this small like this and play it in here.
Cast pies.
Listen carefully.
Ground, they're hammered in with a pile driver, which, put simply, is poured in situ, which means it's actually poured on the construction site in its final position.
Yeah.
An alternative is to use what we refer to as precast driven piles. Precast refers to the fact that the piles are made at a factory away from the site before being delivered. They're then driven into the ground. Hammered.
Okay. As he said, made at the factory away from the site.
Yes, you remember that I mentioned that, for example, the sewer system, el sistema de drenaje, you don't build it in the site, no lo construyen ahí en el sitio, los tubos, los traen ya hechos.
Exactly.
Entonces, eso es el precast pile, son todos los cimientos que se hacen con otra empresa y son entregados en el sitio de la construcción.
Okay.
Precast piles,
So made that kinds of piles are made or carry out to the factory.
Yes, we can name it as external.
The job site, yes.
External made piles. That means that they made them in another part, but not in your construction. Let's listen about to drive in a pile. You got
that is using the big hammer. It's using a big hammer, and we can he can make a pile with a big hammer.
Okay, it's the part where he mentions the boom, boom, boom. Let's listen.
Yes.
In with a pile driver, which, put simply, is just like a giant hammer. And they don't just drive.
To hammer. Okay.
Yeah. So the pile driver.
Hammer.
In this case, it's a big hammer.
Okay.
But what about to drive in? Is the action to drive in a pile?
To hammer in.
To hammer that pile.
Okay.
That's the action. Let's continue listening this part.
In piles, they drive everyone.
In the pile.
Yes.
It's a component. Maybe with the auger. It's a giant drill, right?
Okay. Yes, I mentioned that. Let's listen how to explain.
Instead, we're boring the piles. The pile auger over there is effectively just like a giant drill, as
he mentioned it there. A giant drill. And finally, the bentonite he mentioned, they didn't use as a dust. No lo usaron en polvo.
No.
They use it in
suspension, no?
As a liquid suspension. As a suspension liquid. Let's listen one more time.
It drills into the ground. We pump a special liquid called bentonite into the hole.
Right.
Bentonite.
Essentially, it's a kind of clay suspension, a sort of mud.
He means a clay suspension.
Clay suspension.
Suspension mouth.
Okay.
So that's and maybe notice that he didn't finish explaining that part. He gave an example by using the drama and the comedy because the visitors laughed.
Yeah.
Because he gave an example of what happened if you did not follow the instructions with bentonite. So of course he made use of the humor.
Yep.
That was a part of it. Great. May I raise the answers?
No, it's okay. So I think it's a brief brief explanation, or what, explanation, sorry. And it's good. It's a good form or way to present this job site in talking about structures, civil engineering. It's good. It's good. It seems like very easy. It'd be very easy, and I think
Yes.
it's convenient. It's convenient to explain this class of topics. You know.
Okay, and of course, it's not necessary for you to stop there. That means that
Yeah.
you can apply it not just in construction engineer, but into what we know as your area, your technical area.
Exactly. Yes.
So you need to be able to think in colloquial explanation to your products, to your machine, to your processes. Okay. That's the idea of this thing. Great. Let me erase the comments in here. And let's go ahead. So, in this part, we have to complete the following table using the words in the box. So, we have 4 different tips, 4 different functions when we want to explain in colloquial language. So, we talk about simplifying the language. We talk about simplifying the concept.
Okay.
Focusing on technical terms and illustrating with images. Use maps, planners, stuff like that. So we have the phrases or words that you can use to give the introduction to that part. I mean, how would you start explaining, well, simplifying the language? Oh, in simple terms. That means you want to simplify the language, what you said. All of these are phrases that you use and that Richard used during his explanation. You have the sandbox. You have twice basically, call, effectively, essentially, imagine, other, picture, refer, and simply. I want you to think about these technical terms, okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to give you quite 3 minutes, 4 minutes for you to decide which words sound best with what you want to explain.
Well, it is not very difficult. Maybe it can be, well, I understand in this case, simplifying the language in simple terms, okay?
That's a phrase that you use to say that you are going to explain it better or in a simple way. What other phrase?
Put, no, in other words, put simply.
In other words.
Yes.
Okay.
Put simply or simplify, put in other words, in maybe
and you said put simply.
Yes. Simply, simply.
It would be the other side. Put simply and in other words.
Other words, okay.
And what about the last one? It's just a word.
The last one maybe can be, well, in this case, is basic. Well, here we have 2 basically, no? Basically, it's basically.
And basically, yes. Perfect. Let me write it down.
Yeah.
Great.
Basically.
Okay, let's cross out what we just used. We already used basically once. We already used simply and other words.
Okay. Simplifying concept is effectively. Yes.
So let's look at the next one. Simplify the concept. How would you simplify the concept?
In this case, is effectively.
Effectively, yes. That's to simplify the concept.
Essentially. And
okay, yes, essentially.
Well, okay. Basically, because
Basically
we have
again.
to, yes, basically. Just the concepts.
Excellent. Yes, that's how you can simplify it.
Yep.
Now, what about focusing on technical terms? I mean, how would you introduce a professional word?
Okay. Yeah. Well, what we refers to, etc. I don't know. Refers maybe.
Refers.
Refers, and maybe is what we calls, or I don't know. It refers.
It would be what we refer to as and what we call.
What we calls. Okay.
The other side.
To us.
So the last one would be illustrating with pictures. How would you explain or tell the people, hey, look at the picture?
Well, in this case, is imagine. If you imagine.
If you imagine.
If you picture.
If you picture.
Okay.
Great.
Yes, that is for illustrating with image. Yeah.
You made people use imagination so that it's easier for they to understand.
Good.
Great. So let me erase this thing, and now let's go down. And look at this. You have this text. This is a textbook's description of two types of different pile foundation. You're going to use the words and phrases that we did here upside. Okay, let me use my spotlight. There it is. We're going to complete this, well, not complete. We're going to rephrase the description. Vamos a reescribirlo. But we are going to use these phrases.
Okay.
So that you try to practice how to explain in other words.
Okay.
So you have, I'm going to read the first two paragraphs, and I want you to read the second one, okay?
Yeah, okay.
It says, from a structural perspective, pile foundations can be divided into two categories, end-bearing piles and friction piles. End-bearing piles are driven or bored through soft ground in order to attain firm substrata below. The pile then transmits load vertically to firm subsoil or bedrock. The soft ground surrounding the sides of the pile is structurally redundant.
Okay. Okay.
And read please the second one.
Okay. Friction piles counteract downward loads from the structure through frictional resistance between the sides of the pile and the surrounding ground, and do not therefore rely on firm substrata. In some cases, the diameter of the concrete at the pile's base is widened by compaction, allowing the increased area to give the friction pile a certain degree of end-bearing resistance.
Okay. So you're gonna add the words, and of course you need to change what is underlined. Okay, what is underlined, it's technical vocabulary. So we need to change, but explain in the same meaning the idea.
And bearing piles are driven or bored through.
I'm gonna let me, where is it? There's one. Okay, here it is. Let me put it a little bit better. 14, 18, I think this one. Okay, like this. So it says, from a structural perspective, pile foundations can be divided into two categories. Okay, we can rephrase that. We can say, in colloquial language, there are two types of pile. Literally like that. It's the same. Of pile foundation. The end bearing and friction pile.
Okay.
That's introduction. Aquí ya cambiamos el primer párrafo, que son 2 líneas, a una sola línea.
So in this case, the sentence in the right side.
Actually, you can, I don't know if it's able for you to use a notebook and write it down.
Okay, okay.
Have you got a notebook in that?
Well, for that is the pile then transmit vertical or subsoil or bedrock. The pile transmit stress or of on the water, or basically is the pile transmit stress, no? Is transmit.
Okay, you can start using basically. It says, and bearing piles are driven or bore through.
And the pile or bore in subsoil or on subsoil.
What do you call a subsoil?
Subsoil is under surface, or well, under okay. Producer, okay.
And bearing pile are used when you have,
And bearing pile or just when you have, okay.
It says when you have, and it says soft ground in order to attain firm strata. Soft ground, it's literally the same when you have soft ground, because there is no other way to explain it.
Soft ground.
Oh. Which is, how can we replace firm substrata? Substrata is the part of the soil that is hard, like rock.
Yep. It's a material. It's like a material of the.
So how can we change firm substrata? What is the synonym?
Substrata. No substances. Material, also material is component or
okay, concrete. Concrete, or we can say the concrete is a hard
surface or
ground.
Rock.
That's a synonym. I mean, like another way to explain it's hard ground.
Hard ground.
And then we start the next one. The pile then transmits load vertically to firm subsoil. Another connector?
It's drop frictional resistance between this.
To the concepts?
Ground. He's talking about the impact, or okay, essentially.
Use the connector to the concepts.
Okay.
Because we were talking about concepts. So essentially, the pile what?
Okay, pile.
It says transmit load vertically to firm subsoil or bedrock.
Okay.
That means that they move vertically to the soil or the bedrock. What does that mean, in other words?
To the subsoil, under surface, or?
The pile.
Pile under surface.
That go through, that means a través.
Okay.
It moves through the soil. We can say the soil is a soft ground. And sit y se pone where? It says to firm subsoil. What is firm?
Firm is
something that is what?
Like hard, or?
Hard. So it sits into hard what?
hard on ground or on
Ground, exactly. Hard ground.
Okay.
It goes through the soft ground into this hard ground.
Okay.
Mhm.
So,
Great. Then it says the soft ground surrounding the sides of the pile is structurally redundant.
structure in the pile, or he's talking about in the hole.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
So put simply the phrase,
Simply,
the piles are.
pile are
If they say that they are structurally redundant,
drill or no? Are
kind
structural.
of.
The pile are on the hole, or on
The piles. What are the piles? ¿Qué son las piles? Son las bases ya.
on this the buses. Okay.
We can mention as steels.
Mhm.
Do you know what steels are?
I don't know what is tells.
Steels are in Spanish los zancos,
Okay.
los que dan altura. So in this case, in constructions, the piles are the steels.
Yeah.
Son como los zancos, lo que
Sí,
da
sí.
la
La-
altura al edificio.
Mm,
Aquí lo compara de esta manera simple, por eso dice put simply.
mhm.
Mhm. And then you have the friction piles counter but downward.
Okay.
Aquí ya vamos a hablar de las otras. Hay que marcar diferencia. Vamos a decir friction piles are different.
Different. Okay.
And then why? Because they
Because-
what? It says the piles counteract downward loads from the structure through frictional resistance between the sides of the pile and the surrounding ground.
It says surrounding ground. Yeah. When the big hammer, no. Yes, friction piles contract downward loads. Okay. Oh, frictional resistance.
Hold a second.
Friction piles are different because in this case, because the pile drill underground, no, is it is when the talk about the boom boom is not
Well, they're similar.
not reference is not that reference.
It's similar, yes.
Well, sometimes are different because when you use that drill or the bias bias into the surface or friction points are different because
It's hard to think how to explain this. So what about, let's make it sound easier. The sides of the pile attach to soft ground around them. That's the same to say that they are surrounding ground. Mm-hmm.
Fraction points are different in simple terms. The sides of the point are dashed
Mm-hmm.
of the sun and around it. Well,
Sometimes the bottoms of friction pile are made
with okay.
wider.
Are
That
made
means
wider.
más anchos. So imagine a leg with a foot at the bottom.
Okay.
So it's the same principle.
Idea or what?
The same idea. And that's how you rephrase all these texts.
Okay.
Y si te das cuenta, usamos parte de los apuntes que vienen en azul. Dice imagine a leg and a
Sí,
foot.
sí. I see that.
Son ideas o conceptos con los que puedes relacionarlos.
Yes, it's the basic idea. Taking words with common everyday terms, no, or everyday words.
I don't know if you finished writing this.
Okay. No, it's okay.
We can write it like this. Tell me when I can erase it so we do that. Just finish writing it.
Okay. So, makes it point 17 is that you're showing. Control. But simple lights stills. The same principle. Okay. That's okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Let me erase this thing. Okay. Okay, the last activity. I think I need to upload it or something to Classroom. Because it's an activity, it's our last activity of 1C. I'm gonna give you a resource sheet where you're gonna make notes. Now you're gonna simulate that you have a visitor. Okay, but that's gonna be the next session. So I want you at first to think in your company, in your area. And I want you, what you're going to do is to explain to a visitor that is a non-specialist, in this case, using the technical concepts with simplified language.
Mhm.
Okay, it depends of the type of technology that you are familiar with.
Okay.
I know what kind of machines you are accustomed to work with, but you can explain one of the machines or two of the machines. Of course, use vocabulary. Like this is what we call essentially, basically, effectively, in other words, in simple terms. If you picture if you imagine phrases like that, because you're going to explain one of your machines, in this case to me as a non-specialist.
Not a specialist. Okay.
So think in the
Explain a
machine.
product.
Yes, think in the product or machine that you want to explain. And tomorrow we're going to do that.
Okay, teacher.
That's
Good.
great. Okay. So let's stop here.